And welcome to another episode of the Black Diamond Podcast. I'm Chris Hecker, joined as always by Jerry Durney. This is episode 15, the Thurman Munson / Tim Tebow episode of.
All right. That's a sore subject down here.
Sure it is.
Oh God,
It's a sore subject up here too.
True.
So yeah, it's a sore subject for many people, but had to be done, had to be said. So this week we're going to do things a little bit differently to start the show off. Usually we just dive right into bitching and moaning about the Mets and the Yankees and whatever's going on with them. We're still going to do that, don't worry, but we're going to start the show with the segment that we were planning on ending the show with last week because we kind of went over time. So we wanted to discuss some old school uniforms that have since gone to the wayside that we'd like to see back. That we'd like to see back in baseball now. So I'll let you go first and speak your piece. The floor is yours.
I'll start with the AL. I realize I might be in the minority on this. I've always liked the Astros Tequila Sunrise look of the 80s. Like when you go back to look when Nolan Ryan was pitching for them, or when they had their famous series with the Mets in 86. I think that's a tremendous look, both home and away. The caps complement it well. I feel like they kind of put one foot in the water when they came back to this color scheme with the uniforms they have now. Obviously, it's not the same. I wish they'd fully commit to it, though, because I personally think it's a great look. I dig that a lot. I'm also a big fan, and I say this as someone, of course, is right there. Yeah, you're seeing the Nolan Ryan. That's exactly what we're looking for. I'm also a big fan, especially as someone who loves Carolina basketball. Any team that wears a powder blue uniform, I mean, that's always a solid look, And there's teams that I genuinely dislike that have that look, and even I can't hate those. Like, the Phillies had them when they had Mike Schmidt. The Cardinals had them in the 80s.
Yeah, the Royals wore those over the weekend.
Oh, you're right. They did
against the Yankees. Yeah, in their first win in Yankee Stadium, New Orleans since 1964. But go on.
The Royals do break them out from time to time, but I don't think they do the full powder blue top, powder blue pants. I think they do.
Yeah, it's powder blue and white pants. Yeah, they're
going halfway. I wish they would fully commit to it because it's solid. I think the one that started it for us, because we'll kick ideas around it in between shows, and I know it can't happen for actual legal reasons, which are silly to me. But the original Arizona Diamondbacks look that they wore for about the first decade of their existence, the purple, teal, and like a touch of black in there and a touch of gold as well. And apparently the reason that they had to drop that was because the Rockies filed a complaint that the Diamondbacks purple was too close to theirs, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think the Rockies purple is a little darker, so I feel like they don't clash. But I mean, I guess if it was someone in my division and I felt like they were trying to jock my style, I don't think I'd be thrilled either. So I get it, and I will say, of all the rebrands the Diamondbacks have done since they had to ditch that, the one they have now is probably the best one they've had. I'm not saying that's great, but it's better than what they had. But yeah, if they could bring back the Randy Johnson era look, perfect. That would be just fine by me.
Yeah, no, that would be sick. And it looks like it does look like they do wear those. They do wear those throwbacks sometimes, because I am looking at some pictures and they do have like some present day, but it's just not the same. Like
yeah,
like it's just the way like the letters on the jersey like do form like the arc and stuff. Like
yeah.
they just don't build it. They just don't build them like they used to. And it would be cool if they brought back like the full set of that, like the home, like the homes with the with the pinstripes, and then you got you got the grays and the blacks as well, and then you also have those purple jerseys, which are
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
the best of them, I think.
Yeah, and then you got that and then you have like that inaugural patch on the side
Woo.
with the snake eating the
Oh
baseball
yeah.
python. No, it was a cool look. As much as it brings up, as long as it brings up bad childhood memories, it was a pretty sick look. And it is kind of ridiculous that the Rockies kind of made that assertion. I guess I could understand I guess I could understand to an extent why, but yeah, I always thought that the Diamondbacks shade of purple was always a little bit lighter. Um, and I mean the Rockies themselves had some pretty I feel like the Rockies themselves had pretty sick throwback uniforms with like the with like the sleeves.
The vest.
Yeah, like the vest, and then
You know what's crazy about that? I feel like most Rockies fans don't like the vest, and I feel like everyone who isn't does like that look. It's very weird.
yeah. And then you got these bad boys right here.
The one
Classic.
thing I will always give the Yankees credit for, they never went for that. They never went for turn
Yeah.
ahead the clock day. They didn't need to do turn back the clock day because they always had them. Yeah, but
Oh,
like
don't you worry.
I can laugh at the Mercury Mets jerseys, and like they did a giveaway for them this year because it was the 25th anniversary. Like I can enjoy that, but I also can respect the teams that were like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
You think we are?
Yeah. Who do you think we are? You are, or I am. Do you think that like what are even the rules as far as like City Connects go? Because there's I'm under the impression that every team has to do one, but the Yankees haven't done one yet, and I feel like almost just about every team has come out with one so far.
And it's interesting because even the old timer teams like the Cubs have one, the Red Sox have one, the Dodgers have had two. Because this is my stance on City Connects. They don't have to be perfect, and a lot of them aren't. But if you show me, okay, we're doing a theme because it's a tribute to something that relates to our area, or we're honoring this, I can go, okay, it's not the best
Yeah.
looking thing, but you tried something. The first Dodger throwback that simply just says Los Dodgers. If that's not the most, oh no, the assignment's due at 12 a.m. and it's 11:58 p.m. ass look I've ever seen.
Oh
You
yeah,
didn't
that's
try.
a
You just slapped a
yeah,
Los
that's
on it and said you were honoring heritage. No, you didn't. You had
yeah,
no
no,
ideas.
that's a cop out. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
the assignment was due, and you didn't do your homework, so you
Can
so
I copy yours?
yeah. Oh yeah, just don't make it look obvious, and then
Right.
they proceed to make it look
But
obvious.
like the Angels one is perfect because it's like, oh, that's the surf culture. The
Yeah, they got the
Rockies have
surfboard.
that forest look, which is
Yeah.
great. Like that a lot.
Yeah,
Even the Mets one, I would kind of dig it more because they're going into the subways, which we can very much approve of here on this show.
yep.
They have the map
4 to 7
outline within
pod
the
coming
hat.
soon.
I would have preferred if they had put Queens across the front of the uniform more than NYC because, well, you're not the only NYC team. So it's like,
Yeah.
if it was Queens and you were doing a subway theme, well, okay, everybody can get with that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not perfect, but you tried something. I will extend you the benefit of the doubt if you were consistent on your theme and you tried to pull it off. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but I'm with that.
Yeah, and I do think that as far as the Yankees go, I do think there's kind of a lot they could do with a potential City Connect uniform. I mean, they could either go, like they could have it say like the Bronx or the Bombers like in script on
Oh
like the
yeah.
front or something like that. They don't even have to go too crazy with it. Another thing too with the Mets City Connects is that's kind of the reason why Grimace came to fruition in the first place, because
Yes.
they got the purple and they had they had Grimace throw the first pitch in a City Connect jersey. I'm pretty sure.
He did.
I'm pretty sure the Mets were wearing those that day as well. So without those City Connects, you really don't have the Grimace Linsanity run of 2024.
Grim sanity, if you will.
Grim Sanity run, yes. That was a fumbling of the bag on my part. But yeah, I am glad you brought up the Mercury Mets because I was going to bring it up too. For those of you who don't know, that's the Mercury Mets uniform. I believe they wore them. What year was it? Like
It was
1999 or
99 because they did a giveaway last month honoring the 25th anniversary.
That's
I
right.
was hoping initially that was what the City Connect was going to be since they were rolling it out for this year. I'm like, silly as it would be, that would make sense because it's the one turn ahead the clock uniform that most people still talk about.
Right.
Most of the league did it, but I feel like
Yeah, I
most
think
people can only identify that one. So it's
yeah,
like if
that
you were
was
going
like
to
the
go for it,
most
like that would make sense as a theme.
yeah, that was like the most notable one. Like didn't when they did turn ahead the clock day, didn't they play the Pirates that day? And I think they had like a pretty I think they had like a pretty dog shit uniform
Well, it
for
was like
that.
that pirate head that they had in the 90s, which looks different from what they have now. Like they've always kind of had a pirate head logo, but that one had like an earring and it was biting something. Like,
Yeah,
this was
yeah,
like the
and it was
Jason
like
Kendall era. Like
yeah, and
that
like
team.
the sleeves are I'm like looking at it now. The sleeves are all like the sleeves are all like multicolored. Like the jerseys are red, then it's like a black sleeve, and then like the lower part of the sleeve is yellow. Yeah, it's just kind of silly looking. I guess that Rockies jersey that I put up, I guess that was a I guess that was a turn ahead the clock jersey
That
too.
was. I feel like I
Um,
remember them and like the Mariners.
yeah, yeah, the Mariners were pretty. Yeah, the Mariners ones were pretty obnoxious
Because
because
they were like dark red. Like they had nothing to do with the Mariners scheme.
yeah, and they were yeah. I mean, it was like the like star logo or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like they were like tank tops.
But also they were the 90s Mariners. Like they probably could pull that off.
Yeah,
I don't think I think I posted this the other day. I don't think there will ever be a cooler team. There may be better teams, there may be more successful. There may never be a more cooler team than the 90s Mariners.
yeah, no, it's very true. And just like the all the turbulence that they had to go through, like just to survive as a franchise. Like, um, I know we were talking, we were chatting in the DMs about like SB Nation and some of their work, and that history of Seattle Mariners
Oh yeah.
series they did, and kind of realizing like that 1995 series against the Yankees and like how much it meant to like the Mariners and the city of Seattle. Like by all accounts, like if the Yankees would have won that series, the Mariners may not exist today.
Yeah.
So like it's one of those where you look back and it's one of those where you kind of look back, like even as a Yankee fan, that was a little bit before I was alive for it, but it was a little bit before my time. I was only like 5 years old. But it's one you look back on and you're kind of like, all right, like you can have that one. Like I'm fine with that. And it's one of those things where I don't really hold I don't really hold any ill will towards Ken Griffey Jr. either, even though like he hated the Yankees and he said that for what seems like fairly understandable reasons too, that that he would retire before he'd ever consider playing for the Yankees. But some uniforms that I had in mind. I don't care what anyone says. These Angels uniforms were
Oh, now
were
that's a hot
sick.
take.
It is a hot take, which I just realized is a hot take because I've always been fond of this of this set for the Angels, both the homes and the roads, and I feel like when I was looking for like images for it, all the articles were like, oh, these are like some of the worst uniforms ever, but I don't care whatever anyone says. Those are fresh. I like the I like the angel wing on the A.
The cap is
Um,
really good. I do like that.
yeah, the matching cap. I do kind of like the vest style to it with the with the dark blue sleeves and the pinstripes. I think it's a pretty cool look, and that's something I would love to see come back. Uh, would definitely love to see the Devil Rays make a comeback too. That
I'm
would
glad you said that.
Yeah, no, the Devil Rays were sick. I like their I like their whole design when they were the Devil Rays way better than the Tampa Bay Rays stuff.
Well, I will say, you do have to differentiate because it's those first 4 to 5 years. I think that's the supreme Devil Ray look. When they shortened it and they switched to like a dark green, I mean, you can leave those. But that first when they first came into the league, if they just wanted to switch back to that, all in. And I also think this is one of the points that I always hold firm about on uniforms, and I can attest to this with the Bucks. I think if the Rays hadn't been so bad right out of the gate, which hey, it's an expansion team, it happens, but I think the results do play an influence on that because for the longest time, everyone hated these. No one liked the Creamsicles or Bucko Bruce because what did they do in it? For the most part, they lost.
They lost a lot of
They
games.
had one little period, late 70s, early 80s, but other than that, they lost and lost and lost. And then once they got good and enough time passed, and you can go, okay, well, we're winning now. Like, we can kind of look at it with clear lenses. People could realize, that actually did look pretty sick.
Yeah,
And now it's like every year, Bucks fans are like, all right, are we doing a throwback game this year? We're doing a creamsicle game, right? Every year, we can't wait for it. We were over the moon. They finally brought him back last year, and they're going to do it again this year.
yeah.
And when they're good, they look great.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, anything looks good when you're winning is kind of
Yeah.
like what it comes down to with uniforms. But it also kind of reminds me of like some of the discourse surrounding the Islanders fisherman logo and the fisherman jerseys,
Oh
because
yeah.
they're obviously like that era of time. For the Islanders, like kind of resembles like a pretty dark period in the franchise's history. But like, I don't know, my whole thing is so was everything else aside from like the early 80s. Like, what else is there really to celebrate? And they've had plenty of other uniforms during those times, and plenty of bad memories. But for some reason, like especially like the older crowd, I think like because I think a big part of like why they even ultimately ended up coming back like as a reverse retro was because like it was something that like the younger people were kind of clamoring for. But then you'd have like like boomers kind of being like that was such a disgraceful time, like. But I don't really, I know they had the whole John Spano thing happen, and getting bought by a con artist. But aside from that, like I don't really know what was so bad about that, at least in comparison. And granted, like it's not like they've really like won anything since then that has made people warm up to it. But I think it's one of those things where time can kind of heal all wounds. Like with it also reminds me of like with the Jets, like when they changed their uniform from like their classic look that they had like from like the late 90s till like 2018. um you know Everyone at the time kind of felt like, all right, it's time for new uniforms. Like this is like we've been losing too much lately. It's time for a change. And then they roll out like the worst possible uniforms that
Yeah.
we had to pretend to like those. And then those years kind of ended up being like kind of like the Islanders fisherman years, where it was just like terrible football, and just like like nothing good really came from that era. And the first chance they had, they rebranded after 5 years, and they did it right this time, bringing
Oh,
back like the '80s sack exchange look. But
that was the Bucks immediately realizing as soon as they could that they needed to drop those digital alarm clock ass
oh
jerseys
yeah,
from like the Fitzpatrick, Jameis, Josh McCown era. First chance they got. All right, fine. We'll bring the pewter back. Fine. And then
yeah,
they won a Super Bowl.
yeah.
Yeah.
Coincidence? I think not. Yeah,
No,
it was
for
there.
no other reason. No, nothing else caused it.
Yeah. I think that was the first year they wore those was when they won, right?
Sure did.
Yeah, that's exactly how you draw it up. So I'm hoping for I'm hoping for similar results for us. Another, and the Yankees are down 1-0 right now. I'm trying to think another great throwback uniform. I mean, I've always liked like the old. You talk about powder blue. I always liked the old school Blue Jays uniforms.
I like that they brought back that kind of lettering and font, which they did right as they got good again in the 2010s. Like that's they were kind of stumbling there for a little while, but like and now they have an iconic moment forever with the Bautista bat flip in that.
Yeah,
I thought that was great. It's just like that should always be the Blue Jays look. That's what they started with. That's what they won their World Series with. What more do you need?
yeah, and I won't lie. Even though even though people don't really remember them fondly, those uniforms they wore in like the mid 2000s that just said Jays on them.
Black and silver?
I kind of like those. I'm not
Wow.
s- I'm not saying they should bring those back, but
Wow.
I didn't hate them.
Wow. I, I don't think I hear too many of those. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I have maybe I have weird taste when it
Also, the
comes to
Yankees own the Jays
uniforms.
then too, so you probably do have
Yeah,
good memories of them.
there's probably maybe not fond memories for them, but yeah, definitely fond memories for me. And that's really all I care about.
Exactly. That's
Um,
why we're doing this.
exactly. What else is I'm trying to think what else is good. I always like the old Pirates uniforms that had like the ones that had like the red like lettering or like the red stitches on them.
Ooh, now that's interesting. I
Yeah,
was gonna
like
say I've been a big fan of the. They brought it back recently. The script Pittsburgh for the road, and
yeah,
then they
yeah,
introduced that black alternate. I love those.
yeah, those are fire. And their city connects are like, I mean, they're to me they're like fine.
Yeah,
Um,
they're okay.
you know, they got the PGH like abbreviating,
Yeah,
like
it's all right.
abbreviating the city. You know, there probably wasn't. They kept it simple. There probably wasn't like a whole lot that they could do with those.
I mean, you can't put Permani Brothers on it or Icy Light or something. Like,
No, which is a shame. At least not yet. I'm sure we'll get there at that point. And then I mean
most
the
likely.
actual I mean the actual Pirates throwbacks too. Like
Yes,
the yellow tops with the black pants. Like
the
those are
pillbox hat
sick.
they call it.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that
the
and
Willie Stargell look. Yeah, big fan.
yeah, and obviously you know obviously not something you're not gonna like this, but I also do love those Braves uniforms from like the 70s and the 80s,
I will
like the
say
blue
I do
ones.
like those, and I like
Yep,
that they
wrong
made those the
one.
City Connects. I can respect that. Honestly, it's also better looking at those than what's been torturing me for 30 years. So fair
That's
enough.
also a good point. That's also a
Like
good
also,
point.
it's the Hank Aaron jersey. Like how can you really hate those?
Yeah. I also really like the old Padres look, like that
Ooh,
they wore in like the late '90s, like with like the
ooh,
brown and the brown and the dark blue. Maybe it's just because
ah,
of that '98 World. It reminds me of the '98 World Series,
I'm
but
like that's got to be it.
yeah, that certainly plays a role. But I've always been a fan of that look. Uh, trying to think what else.
It's funny. There's usually Padre uniforms that get people very worked up. It's usually not that one.
Which ones are you referring to?
Oh,
Like the
usually the
city?
originals. The the,
Yeah,
the
those
mustard
and
like the yeah, the mustard brown and yellows.
and
Yeah,
the city
even that
connects.
era. Even that one right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, the people get worked up over like, which kind of inspires their scheme now. People have very strong opinions on that. I generally feel like people. I think like those uniforms, and then the next era when they debuted in Petco Park, like those were about as safe as they could play it. Like I think people don't have strong opinions on those two one way or the other. You're probably the first
Yeah,
person I've heard of that was like, yeah, I really like those.
yeah, yeah. No, those were sick. And I did like the Astros. I also like the Astros uniforms from like the 2000s, like before they moved to the American League, like with the red.
The brick red.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was always a fan of those.
I like the solid red uniforms that they would have. Like their home and aways, take them or leave them. But the brick red alternate, big fan of that.
Yeah, what is kind of funny is that like we think about the Yankees as like this team that, never changes their uniforms, but technically they did change their uniforms this year.
How do you feel about that?
The road ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really care one way or the other. I did really like the old ones, like with the stitching. I have one of those jerseys, so I would say I'm probably more partial to that than what they wear now. But I mean, both are pretty clean. So, it's nothing that I get like worked up about, really.
I guess I would figure it's the familiarity. I mean, and they've had that for probably almost 40 years.
Yeah,
And again, I tie it back to results of you guys have so many great memories with those that it's one of those, why would you ever change it? Like there's so many great things that have happened with those road uniforms, like countless World Series that you guys have clinched in that. And it's like, to change it for what? As, oh, get up, Pete, get that out. Get out.
apparently,
Here we go.
is it gone?
Yep. 2-run shot for Pete. They've blown this open. It's 7-2.
Nice. Fuck the Red Sox. The Mets do have the opportunity to kind of bury the Red Sox in the dust. Well, not really bury them. They're 4.5 games back of the Royals now, but if the Mets could, the Mets beat them last night. Looks like, I don't want to say anything because you never want to speak too soon, but
Not with this bullpen.
things are looking good now. And then they got another game against them tomorrow, so if they could put them 6.5, 7 games back, that'd be a pretty tall mountain to climb. And the Royals might even overtake the Guardians for first in the Central, which that would be something. But even then, the Guardians would be a very hard team for them to catch too. So as a Red Sox hater for all of eternity, would definitely love to see that happen. I did hear that Citi Field, the Red Sox fans and the Mets fans came together in unison for a Yankee suck chant. Just have fun. You can do those together on the golf course in a month.
I will be clipping that.
Please do, by all means. With that, though, are there any other uniforms you could think of that you'd like to see make a comeback?
I know the Orioles do have an orange in their catalog now,
Right.
but I would love to see them bring back the style, and they kind of do it with the cap a little bit. I feel like they do it like 70%, but they don't fully lean into it. If you look at like their late 70s uniforms, the orange they had then with the lettering they had back then, and
with that
the
script,
logo cap with the paneling, bring that all the way back. Their uniforms are fine now. They're not bad. I'm just saying the upgrade's there if they wanted to do it.
Oh, yeah. And the Orioles, honestly, I would say that the Orioles have never had a bad uniform.
Their City Connect's fine. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's flat out bad. It could be better. It's fine. But I do agree with your assessment on the whole. They've been fine.
Yeah. The City Connect is probably their least good one, which is, probably something that you could say for –
yeah.
That's probably what you could say for most teams, is that usually You know what they should bring back? They should bring back the old Florida Marlins uniforms.
So I have a bit of a hot take on that. I kind of like what they did. It's one of the few good things Jeter's done as a Marlins owner. The switch that they went back to with the black, the teal, and then the hint of the neon, which I get like they were kind of copying the Heat because their City Edition jersey just took off like wildfire. So it's that Miami Vice theme. But
Yeah.
I like what they tried to do there. It's not perfect, and obviously it's not the 90s jerseys. People will say, "Oh, Marlins fans don't exist," but I do know them, and they want those 90s ones back. It's not that. I do think it's better than what they did in the 2000s, where they kind of did 1 foot in, 1 foot out on them. Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we still have a splash of teal in there, but it's mostly black and silver. But they didn't really want to go away from it, so they tried to make it look like they weren't. And then the uniforms that they had when they went to Marlins Park are just. I believe my friend Anthony Arches, and it's his birthday tonight as we record this, and I do want to tip my
Happy
cap to him.
birthday, Anthony.
He once described them as the Pollo Tropical corporate softball team uniforms, and I've never heard a better description, so I'm just going to leave them as that. Those were hideous. So at least what they have now is an upgrade on that. Would the 90s ones be perfect? Of course, but we're never going to get everything we want. So I will give them that.
For sure. And yeah, happy birthday, Anthony. Personally could not have said it better myself. Yeah, I would say that the current Marlins uniform set has kind of it's kind of grown on me as as time has gone on. But when those first came out, it just reminded me of like Super Mario Sunshine. And I was just like, all right, like what are we doing here?
That's fair. That's an immense pull. I gotta salute that.
Much appreciated. But moving on, so we discussed uniforms for a bit now. I guess let's dive into the going-ons of the New York Mets. And
you have time to talk about our Lord and Savior Francisco Lindor?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do have some time. So there's kind of been, even on this show, we've definitely discussed Francisco Lindor quite a bit, and even though Shohei Ohtani is like the runaway favorite for MVP, I think that there's more and more steam picking up as to whether or not he really as to whether or not he really should be, and if he does deserve a serious look for the MVP. And I mean, honestly, the more that you think about it, and the more time goes on, maybe the gap is not as maybe the gap between the two is not as far as we're being led to believe.
It really sucks for me as someone who has loved watching Ohtani really since he took this jump 3 years ago, where he truly became maybe the best hitter on the planet and one of the better pitchers in the league. I've got to watch him in person 3 times, and I go whenever I can because I know how rare this is, and it's special. So when I pump up Lindor as an MVP, I always want to present it from the case of, I just think what this guy is doing is one of a kind. And again, if you take Lindor off this team, they're contending for a top 8 pick right now. That's how good he is. And I never want to present it from the case of Ohtani's not that good, because he's got a legitimate case at 50-50, which has never been done. I get the people who say, hey, a flat out DH has never won this, and maybe they shouldn't. Normally I would get that. Yeah. It's 50-50. It's sort of a different version of the Trout Miggy thing. Where it's like, yeah, Trout's doing all this. And he had a right to win that on merit. 100%. But also, like, we hold the Triple Crown in high esteem as baseball fans because it hadn't been done for almost 50 years. So when someone actually does it, yeah, you have to reward that. No one's ever done 50-50. We didn't think that was possible. And here's this guy doing it while rehabbing. Like, yeah, that's insane. But also, here's someone who is playing Gold Glove defense, switched to the leadoff spot in season. He didn't start off the season as the leadoff hitter. Got asked to do this. This is something I don't think he's ever really done during his career. He's normally the 3 or 4 hitter. They asked him to be the table setter, and he's thrived. He's out. He just hit his 30th home run of the season tonight. It's the 5th 30 homer season of his career. He's got a chance to put up 30-30 for the second year in a row while playing maybe the best defense in the league at short, and has helped turn this team's season around, which kind of leads me to my second point. And this is something that I've long campaigned for. I really do think, and I would say this for any sport, I think there needs to be a most outstanding player award and a most valuable player award. Like, you look at the year that A-Rod won his MVP in Texas, I would take nothing away from him, because, like, if you go back and look at it, it was his last year in Texas and they finished in last place. Yeah, that guy was the best player in the league. Can't be contested. They finished last. How valuable are you really? This year, Shohei Ohtani has been the most outstanding player in the NL, far and away.
Yeah, Dodgers probably are still in a similar position without him.
Correct. And I don't say that as a knock of, oh, he's not that important, not that good. Even if he wasn't there, this Dodger team probably is still winning 100 games no matter what. They're that well constructed. Right. If Francisco Lindor is not doing this for the Mets, if you just take him out completely, they've probably got 62. Actually, that's being generous. They might be hovering around like 50 wins right now. This is objectively a very mid team without him. And they've got a chance to make the playoffs, which nobody really expected for this team when the year started. Nobody really thought this team was going to the playoffs at the end of May. And here we are, early September, and they're a game out right now. And things could change depending on the end of the night here. And that's really down to him being excellent for 3 months now. And I've always been a big fan of his going back to his days in Cleveland. I mean, I remember doing backflips the day we traded for him, because that was the first big move under Cohen. It's like, okay, we're serious again about getting guys who are this good. And yeah, he had a bad 2021. He was moving to a new city during a pandemic. Gee, I wonder why that didn't go well. He's been excellent for 3 years now, and there's still parts of this fan base that have just written him off completely because he underperformed 3 years ago. That even right now don't see it. I will always go up for that guy.
And even when he supposedly underperformed, even that was just like, I feel like he just had a cold start, and like, they say that first impressions last like a lifetime or whatever. I think it's kind of a case of that. Like, he had a cold start when he first came to the Mets.
Even this
which
year,
is something he's done. Even when he was in Cleveland, he's always kind of started out the season cold. That's kind of been his MO. But
did that this year too.
Yeah, and then
he had 190 for well over the first month.
Oh yeah. I remember all the things that were. I remember all the things that were being said about Francisco Lindor, and none of it was right. None of it was right. And
I'm pointing at you, Brandon Tierney. I'm pointing at you. not you, Chris.
Thank
you
God.
know ball.
Yeah. I try to do my best, when it comes to knowing ball. But yeah, Brandon Tierney, we went to the ball knowing factory, and nobody there knew who you were.
If you know ball, they turn you away at the door. WFAN.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you're kind of overqualified for this position. We haven't had a ball knower since Mike Francesa retired. And, they're going in a whole different direction with that. But yeah, I mean, I think there is a legitimate case for Francisco Lindor to be the MVP, or I hope he at least gets. Hopefully, he at least gets some votes. At this point, if it even is a race, it's definitely a 2-man race between Ohtani and him. I think the fact that Lindor does play the field and plays the field at an insanely high level, on a daily basis is definitely a strong argument point. I mean, you look at the WAR, which WAR is not the end all be all. I mean, Otani does have a point higher as far as the WAR goes, and yeah, 50. Yeah, if he does pull off the 50-50, that is an unprecedented, pretty unprecedented accomplishment. I'm not sure that that's ever happened before. So there's definitely an argument for either player, but I think that the race should at least be a little bit closer than it is, and I think it's interesting you brought up, like, oh, I hate to say this, like, as someone who enjoys watching Otani, because it's like I don't know, I feel like with Otani, anytime you want to argue for your guy over him, like, it kind of reminds me of like 2018 when Otani won Rookie of the Year over Andujar, which at the time I didn't agree with. Looking back, I think it was the right call, even if Andujar had better numbers that year. But for Otani to do what he did, like, as a rookie and as a multi faceted player, like, pitching and hitting, something that we had not seen, like, since Babe Ruth, basically. I think that he definitely deserves his place in history for that. But yeah, I think that there is an argument for Lindor being the MVP, and I think I think it does bring up the classic kind of argument that people in the baseball community seem to have this argument on a yearly basis, where, like, what is the meaning of most valuable player? Like, is it the best player, or is it the player who is the most valuable to their team? And I would say that Otani is the best player in the National League. But as far as as far as who brings more value to their team, I don't think that's really debatable, because like, it's like you were saying, the Mets would be bottom feeders if they didn't have Lindor doing what he's doing, both at the plate and in the field on a nightly basis. They would be, they'd be contending for a top 5 draft pick, while the Dodgers, they may not be. The Dodgers may be a few games less good if they didn't have Otani, but chances are they'd still be in first place in the division, and they'd be in a good position to get primed for, like, a run at a title right now. So it is one of those classic arguments. I mean, I don't know if we necessarily need more awards. I think it's more just like, I think that we need, like, a more clear cut. I think there just needs to be, like, more clear cut expectations of, like, what do we mean when we say the most valuable player? Like, do we just
I
mean the
always kind of
best,
look
or
at
do
it
we
in the
actually mean the most valuable to their team?
I, to me. I mean, obviously, I can't speak for anyone else, but I always look at MVP as, if you weren't there doing what you were doing, your team wouldn't have the year that it had.
Right.
And like, I look at, like, Yelich in 2018, it was him and Bellinger. And take nothing away from Cody Bellinger that year, because he was great. If you take Christian Yelich off the Brewers that year, the Brewers were the number 1 seed with him. If he's not there, they're probably not even in the wild card picture. That to me says, like, yeah. Or when McCutchen won his MVP, yeah, there were a lot of good parts to that Pirates team. He was the engine for that. If you don't have Andrew McCutchen on the Pirates that year, they're probably still over 500. They're probably decent. I don't think they're making the playoffs. Like, that
No.
to me is an MVP winner, is someone who drives you to do something, or drives your team to do something that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's like a fair, assessment of it. Like, obviously, like, I don't think there's any debate in the American League that, it should be Aaron Judge, while at the same time, the Royals probably aren't, sniffing a playoff spot without Bobby Witt Jr., but, like, neither are the Yankees without Aaron Judge. I mean, we saw like how putrid their lineup was last year without him, and we've seen how putrid the Yankees lineup can be at times, even with him there, when when other when other pieces are either out of the picture or aren't clicking like we're accustomed to. So so I really don't think that there's any debate there as to Aaron Judge, but it is interesting that like it seems like it's always like Otani versus somebody else, and it's like you're pitting the two against each other. Like there are a few times where it happened between Otani and Judge for MVP back in his Angels day, which will be a good segue to the next point of discussion here. But it always before we get to that though, it always did kind of annoy me, like I think most specifically in 2022, when Otani won MVP in 2021, and then 2022, it was kind of like for the beginning of that season, it was like pretty much a two-man race between Judge and Otani, and then Judge went on to break the American League home run record, and at that point, from the second half on, it was very much a one-man race. But you still had those people that were like arguing for Otani, and as a Yankee fan and as a Judge fan, it was like, oh, you were one of those.
I may or may not have been.
Okay, I mean that's like fair, that's like fair if you are. I mean, he did pitch that year. Aaron Judge didn't pitch, but I think that
It's not even just that he pitched. Like there's plenty of average pitchers. It's that he was pitching.
He's pitching at an extremely high level. Yeah, but also, they had him and Trout that year, and they still didn't sniff the playoffs.
No.
So there, if you're, if that's how you want to, that's how you want to kind of like evaluate it, then I don't know if that would really hold up for Otani.
No, that's fair.
But it always bothered me that like, because it seemed like the people that not you specifically. I mean, I didn't even know who you were back then, but like the people that were like arguing against Judge and for Otani, it seemed like a lot of them like had something like against Judge, like there was I don't know, some like shade or some hate that they were throwing Judge's way during that. I'm sure you seem like a reasonable person, so I'm sure it wasn't you, but a lot of just like scrolling through like comment sections or Twitter replies or whatever.
My thing was just that not only was he pitching well, but he was also hitting like 40 plus home runs. Like we have seen, like Michael Lorenzen was, I think, still kind of is a two-way guy, or at least was at one point.
Yeah,
and it didn't work nearly as well. And that's no slight to him because like he actually pulled it off. But to see someone be this good at both sides, we hadn't seen that in 100 years. That's to me where it's like, yeah, you. And certainly, and no taking away from Judge, like crossing the 60 mark legitimately. But to see someone be a top 5 pitcher in his league and also be probably the second best hitter in his league that year, like that to me is like, if you can do both that well, like I feel like that has to be recognized. But I can certainly see why people would go, yeah, the guy that hit 62, which hasn't been done in the AL in 60 years, yeah, like we have to give it to him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I can, to an extent, I can understand like both sides of it. But what always annoyed me was like, it always made me, it always felt like, oh, if I'm like defending Judge now, like, and why he should be the MVP, people are gonna think like that I like have something against Otani, or that like I'm an Otani hater, and like that is definitely like not the case. Like dudes him and Judge are, I mean, one thing I think both sides can agree on is that those are like the two faces of MLB right now, are Shohei Otani and Aaron Judge. So I mean, it always just kind of annoyed me that it always kind of felt like, oh, if I'm gonna defend Judge now, like I have to like throw some shade at Otani, because that's like not what I want to do. I just think like, Judge deserves it this year, and now they're in different leagues, so they'll both they both get to win MVP this year, which it is a shame that Lindor. I mean, Lindor will most likely win the NL Gold Glove for shortstop, I would have to imagine, but it is a shame that for as good of a season as he's having, and for as much as he's carrying the Mets and keeping them afloat in the wild card race. And man, I didn't even realize that. I didn't even realize till right now, honestly, that they're like basically tied for that last spot with the Braves.
Braves just did clinch a win, so it'll stay at 1. But yeah,
at
here we are.
Yeah, so it is. It is kind of wild, and the Yankees just took a 2-1 lead. It appears. Stream's frozen, but score has updated.
Well,
But
my stream is working. Your number 9 hitter is up. You can guess what just happened.
I'm going to guess that he probably grounded into a double play.
6-4-3.
Well, that's that's pretty much it's pretty much death, taxes, and DJ LeMahieu grounding into double plays at this point. The 3 guarantees in life. Although
I do want to make sure I have this on the record, and I do want to quote our good friend of the show, Kevin Lewis. Why do we have to pit 2 bad bitches against each other?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. There's really no reason to do it, and now there's
against Margot Robbie. We don't have to do this.
No, there's no need for it, and if you're a man of culture, if you're a man of culture and a man of taste, whether it's baseball or women, whatever it may be, there's different flavors and different styles that can be appreciated. So there's no need to like pit them up against each other. I thought that you were going to I think I'm about to see the 6-4-3 double play because my stream is behind, and there it is, like clockwork. Unbelievable. But whatever.
I looked up recently because I remember Kev said on a show recently that he's got to be leading the league in double plays, and he wasn't even in the top 10. I went and I caught him. I think it was from might have been one
probably
of
the probably because he missed the first month with injury.
Yeah, that's true. But I think Manny Machado was leading the league, which I never would have. Which actually, I guess makes sense.
That. Yeah, I mean, he does hit the ball pretty hard. So sometimes if you hit the ball hard enough times, you're gonna hit the ball hard right at somebody.
But and also, he runs about as fast as I do on most ground balls. So
there's also that, Mr. Johnny Hustle.
Not that I'm the hustle police, but there is film of this.
Yeah. There's definitely evidence of this. It's been, his running has been well documented, and I will be right back. This is unprofessional, but I need to grab my laptop charger so it doesn't die. But
fair enough.
I'll set the table for you. So pretty much what we're getting at now is that Shohei Ohtani is returning to Anaheim for the first time since departing from the Angels. Is now a Los Angeles Dodger. The Angels are not honoring him or showing any recognition, no video tribute, no nothing for him. They're just going to pretend like he's just some other guy, I guess, and that he doesn't exist. So, I'll let you take it away and give your thoughts on that, and I will be back in less than a minute.
All right, I'll take that from you, Chris. And as always, I try to see both sides of this, and on the one hand, I can understand the Angels being of the position of, hey, he plays for the Dodgers. We can't recognize that guy. One, simply because they're our crosstown rivals. We just can't do that. And two, even if we did do that, that's only going to make our fans more upset, I'm sure there's enough people in the Angels organization that realize, hey, yeah, we don't have a whole lot of goodwill right now. If we're just out here airing video tributes and doing everything to honor this generational player that just left our team to go play across town, yeah, our fans are going to be super pissed at us for that. Part of me does recognize and understand why a team might think that. But Chris and I were just talking about this before we went on air, and of course, I think of the big sports story over the past week has been the passing of Johnny Gaudreau. And for those that may not know, in the world of hockey, he played in Calgary for nearly a decade, left 2 years ago to go play in Columbus. There were a lot of hurt feelings in Calgary over that. I think they thought he was going to stay. He was beloved there. They went ahead and did a video tribute for him anyway, and it was a video that was actually making the rounds over the weekend after his passing. And if you watch the video, it starts and it zooms in on him on the bench, but you can hear it. People are booing it at first. And then eventually it gets overtaken by cheers. And it's at the end of the video, you can hear the public address announcer saying, "Everyone in Calgary, let's welcome back Johnny Hockey, number 13, Johnny Gaudreau." Full-throated cheers throughout the building. And then the puck drops and he's out there. They start booing him.
Yeah, every time he touched the puck. Yeah.
But that's how the game goes. But when they were presented with, hey, yeah, this guy played here for 9 years. He did a lot of good things for us on and off the ice. Just because he's gone and we wish he was still here, that doesn't erase everything he did. And I get like no two situations are the same. And obviously, Johnny Gaudreau wasn't signing for the same money that Shohei did. Like I get that. It's two very different cases. But I don't think there's any reason why you can't just say, hey, thanks. We wish you were still here. We wish you weren't playing for that team, but we had fun. So I get both sides of it. Like, I do wonder if, say the crazy rumor comes true and he signs for Toronto. I bet they would have done something tonight. Maybe they wouldn't have rolled out the red carpet for him and all that, but I bet they would have done something because that's Toronto. Even if they're good, we don't have to hear about it all the time. If you're in Anaheim, you're hearing every single day how good he is. I'm sure that's not fun. So, again, should they do something? Probably. Can I understand why they didn't do it? Yeah. And the other experience I come from is I remember being an Orlando Magic fan. I went to Dwight Howard's first game back in 2013. If they had tried to run a tribute video that night, they might have pulled the Jumbotron down because not one person in that building wanted to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, those are fair points. I guess my stance on it, and I was actually at this, but to me, like, if the Islanders were able to give John Tavares like a video tribute his first game back, which, debatable whether or not that was a good idea. The reception and the reaction that he got would suggest that it wasn't. And I was there. I can attest to it, and like I can say with pretty full-fledged confidence that Long Islanders are nowhere near as classy as the people of Calgary.
I don't think anybody will be calling Shohei Pajama Boy tonight. I feel pretty confident in that.
No, I don't think they'd be calling him Pajama Boy. And honestly, Pajama Boy is probably one of like the lighter, nicer things that people were saying. But I don't know. I think like it's like, what do you really get out of like not acknowledging him? I mean, like, because I think at the end of the day, like with the Islanders, even though like it probably didn't look great and it probably didn't play out great that they did that video tribute for him. I mean, I thought it was hilarious that they did it personally. Like people were chanting like they start showing his like highlights as an Islander, and then like people start chanting, like people start doing the asshole chant, and then they start like switching the camera over to like like charitable acts and like community stuff that he was doing. There was like a clip of him like pushing an old guy around in a wheelchair, and like everyone's chanting asshole.
I forgot this. I just remember the tribute video didn't go well. I forgot this part.
Yeah. No, I have like a pretty vivid memory of it, even though I was pretty drunk that night. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like if they could do that for him, and like considering, and like the thing that Islander fans were, not to like dive into hockey too much, but the thing that Islander fans were really mad about it, like with that, it wasn't the fact that he left. It was more so the fact that the way he went about leaving, the way he basically lied to the organization and the fan base about his intentions of staying. Now, I don't blame him for not asking to be traded or asking to not be traded. That's solely on like a GM for not doing that. And you could make the same argument that, you can kind of make the same argument for the Angels that,
Yeah.
if you were going to lose him, maybe you could have traded him. But also, I could understand it, like, if you're the GM who traded Shohei Ohtani and that's like
Yeah.
on your resume, like that doesn't exactly look good either. So it's definitely like a lose-lose situation, but ultimately, like with Shohei's situation, I think the Angels just never really, they never really were serious about keeping him. They never seem to really want to shell out the money, and I kind of understand why. They kind of have their own issues as far as like, their stadium and stuff. They're still paying Trout a butt ton of money. They're stuck with the Anthony Rendon contract too, which is very unfortunate. So they do have they do have some money on the books and some situations on the books that maybe got in the way, but ultimately, Otani went where he was going to get the most money. I don't think he ever really was going to sign with Toronto. I think it was more just like due diligence, and maybe that was like a leverage play. Like, all right, like maybe he wanted, maybe the Dodgers offer was close, but it wasn't quite the $700 million he was looking for.
Well,
And maybe
I had used Toronto just as an example of, I think fans and organizations would feel a certain type of way where it's like, okay, if it's Toronto, we have no history with them. Like we hardly ever see them, even if
yeah.
they're good. Like, what does it affect us? The frame of reference that I could use for baseball was when Jose Reyes left. I could speak personally. I was very hurt at the time. Not like, I think we knew the Mets weren't going to shell out the money at that point because the Madoff thing was very much deep in a hold on the franchise at that point. But it's that you went to the team that knocked your team out 2 years in a row, and they were mocking you while they did it. You're going to go to them? Like, even at the time, I remember telling people, I'm like, if Reyes went to the Angels, like, we never play them. We've never played them in the World Series. There's no incidents. Like, what would we care?
Yeah, there's
no reason to. But you went to that. I think that would probably be the Angels fans' only qualms, because Shohei was historically quiet about his whole thing. Like, he told teams, if you let anything get out, I'm not coming.
You're
So
getting
you can't even say that
disqualified if anything leaks.
Yeah, like no one can say, oh, he lied to the Angels, because he didn't say anything. He didn't want anything to be said. I think the only thing that would maybe bother Angels fans is just, I think there's a lot of Angels fans that are reasonable, that it's like, yeah, we had him for that long and we couldn't even get close. I think maybe if there's any gripe, it would be, you went to them. You couldn't go anywhere else. You had to go. Like, I'm sure it kills them to see him doing this well for the Dodgers, and that they're going to go to the postseason the first time he's there.
Yeah, first time
I guarantee that's the one hang up. Like,
and
what
their
else was
World
there to be
Series
upset with
favorites.
him about?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue against that. It is like the crosstown rival and like the whole like big brother, little brother dynamic. Personally, I don't know. I think I just think that in a situation for a player of that caliber who's like that much of an icon, and really would even like if Shohei Ohtani retired today, he would be one of like the three best Angels players of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so there's that aspect, and he did start his career. He did accomplish a lot. Like, I mean, he was, and everyone kind of, and it's crazy too, because like, when he was coming into the league, everyone kind of thought that he'd go to the National League, or that he should just sign with a National League team so that he could do what he wanted to do, like more easily, hit and pitch. And he still chose to go to the Angels. And he had that moment where he struck out Mike Trout in the World Baseball Classic, and I don't know. I think, to me, and I like if you're an Angels fan, I could understand like your stance either way. Like if you wanted to boo him or if you wanted to give him a round of applause. I just think the organization should have probably just given him the recognition that he deserved with like a nice little tribute, nice little welcome back, and let the fans react how they want to.
Yeah, I feel like, and that also feels like you got to trust your fans, and maybe that means that the organization felt a certain type of way, because if the fans applaud, that could almost kind of send a signal of, hey, yeah, we understand why you had to go. It wasn't working here. We know you want to win, and that stuff matters to you. And if you're the Angels front office and it's like, hey, he left us, why aren't you mad? Like that's one of those things that can kind of create the dynamic of, see, even the fans take the player's side, not the team's. So maybe this is the team doing it to save face, to say, hey, yeah,
Yeah, a little
maybe these people do like you and we're not going to give them it.
little bit of damage control. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I guess it would be an opportunity. It would be an opportunity to make the organization look bad, I guess.
And listen, there's been comparisons between this era of the Angels in terms of how they're run with the Wilpon era Mets. And as someone who lived through it, I'm not saying it's totally right, but boy, I could see where people got that idea from. Because these were the kind of things that the Mets hardly ever retired numbers under the Wilpons. Steve Cohen gets in the door, they can't stop.
Yeah.
With, like, feel how you feel about retired numbers, and maybe that's something that we can do, after the season or whatever. But I do think it's important to acknowledge the history of your team, and it was just something that they never did. And to kind of add to it, because we were preparing this topic before we went on air, I had noticed this when the Mets played in Anaheim last month. They still have someone that wears number 15. You would think if any Angels player is going to have his number retired, it's Tim Salmon. Someone still wears 16. Garrett Anderson deserves his number retired. Someone wears 57. You mean to tell me the Angels don't retire K-Rod's number? Are you kidding?
Yeah, and those were people who, and those were people who also either like retired as Angels or, their departure was, not to a crosstown rival and not as like hope. And it wasn't like as high profile as
or it was at the end. Like Shohei still got 10 years in front of him.
Yeah, Shohei's still got, at least the next 10 years. Garrett Anderson, his career was pretty much over by the time he finished up with the Angels. And K-Rod, bounced around with a couple of other teams, but he really had his prime years in Anaheim. Tim Salmon, I think
was only an Angel.
Yeah, Tim Salmon, I don't think played for another team. So, Tim Salmon, actually, fun fact about Tim Salmon is that he was drafted by the Atlanta Braves, but then he got drafted. He was drafted by the Atlanta Braves in '86, and then I guess he went to college. He went to Grand Canyon University, and then in '89 he was drafted in the third round by the, at the time, California Angels.
I learned that Tim Salmon went to Grand Canyon University at Today PM.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. I didn't know they were around that long.
Yeah, no, apparently so. I also just learned this, but I wanted to make sure we had our facts straight, that he was in fact only an Angel, and he was a California. He actually played for 3 variations of the Angels. He was a California Angel, he was an Anaheim Angel, and he was a Los Angeles of Anaheim Angel hatch. He got the hat trick.
Yeah, how many can say that?
Yeah, not too many.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, not too many, but yeah, it's one of those things that it's one of those things that and Troy Percival actually technically did not. I just looked at his baseball reference, and he was a California Angel and an Anaheim Angel, but it looks like he left right when the Angels became the LAA. He went to the Tigers. So he just missed the
I
hat
forgot
trick.
he was a Tiger. I remember him because for some reason he was on the Rays team that went worst to first. So I remember that. I forgot he was a Tiger.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely one of those situations where, definitely one of those situations where it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're the Angels, and kind of, I guess kind of a lose-lose situation. But when you're a losing franchise that doesn't really do things the right way, those are the situations you find yourself in.
And it's also one of those things that I guess you don't really want to think about, but this stuff does matter. Is I wonder, if someone were to think about signing for the Angels, and then it's like, oh well, what if I go? And they can look at this and go, man, that guy did everything he could, and this is how they thank him. I don't even remember them really doing that much when he left. Like I don't think they took an ad out in the paper or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even remember if he got like a tweet or like a thank you Shohei tweet or Instagram post or anything like that.
So if I'm someone that's thinking about maybe signing with the Angels, then it's, hey, yeah,
Hey, this is
I,
how
I might
you.
never be as good as that guy, and he left, and this is how they did him. Like,
Yeah,
so what are they going to think of me?
yeah. Meanwhile, you're just like, yeah, and it's like, and then meanwhile, you're just letting people like Anthony Rendon like steal money from you.
Yeah,
So it's like,
and laugh about it. Like he can't
yeah,
stop yapping about how much like, yeah, can you believe this shit? I never play.
yeah,
They still pay
yeah.
me.
Can you
The
believe this?
greatest thing in the
I
world.
actually don't give a fuck about this.
You believe
Yeah,
these idiots? It's great.
and here I still am collecting paychecks, and what are they going to do about it? Nothing.
Fooled
Um,
you.
yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things too, and it's like, like when when you're a bad team with a history of losing, like these guys right here. A lot of fans of the Jets also complain about, media coverage and, how the team is perceived and covered. And I'm guilty of it too sometimes, but that's just kind of the way it is. When you're not, when you're not a winning organization, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt with things. And, this is a class, and when you do something or don't do something that could be perceived as a bad look, most of the time people are going to err on the side of that's a bad look, because like that's kind of the reputation you built for yourself, is doing things that look bad.
But I can sympathize because I mean I fully believe this with the Mets sometimes is that we get stuff like this, but then it doesn't help that like Chipper's retiring and like we did like a ceremony for him. For
Yeah.
what?
Or like yeah,
Why?
like when Derek Jeter had his farewell tour and like the Red Sox were like
Yeah,
giving him gifts, like I didn't like that. I didn't even like when they took him out in his last game in Boston and he got the standing ovation. I was like, no, this is weird. And then like when the same shit happened a couple of years later, like when the shoe was on the other foot with David Ortiz, didn't like it then. Um, you know, like
Rivera I could understand because I feel like even if you didn't like the Yankees, it's like nobody disliked him. Everyone's just like, yeah, that guy's too good.
yeah,
We
like
have to
what
salute
can
him.
you do? Yeah, yeah, and the Red Sox got theirs off of Rivera, so um, what do they really have to be mad about? But even then, still, it's like, hey, like these rivalries exist for a reason, and not everything's supposed to be like a storybook movie type ending. Like
Right.
like I'd rather just like if I was at Yankee Stadium when David Ortiz got his flowers, I would have booed personally. But that's just me, and that's why they don't let me go to these things.
I thank God
Uh,
every day that my team retired Coach K in the Final Four and that it wasn't the other way around because I'd be nauseous.
oh yeah, yeah.
Whew.
No, that's part of it too. There's got to be like a pride of like, yeah, like like we ended this guy's career, or like, you know, or maybe like this. I mean, when Jeter retired, like the Yankees were like out of it, but there's got to be a sense of pride when it's like someone trying to make the playoffs, and the Yankees have now taken a 4-1 lead, where it's just like all right, like no, like these teams don't like each other. We're not supposed to like each other, and we're not supposed to be nice to each other. Like maybe these players off the field, maybe they're cool with each other. They get dinner together or hang out or whatever. Like I'm sure there's plenty of players that play for rival teams that are friends, but I think like when you're in the game setting, when you're on the field, like even if it's a ceremony before a game, I don't think that it should necessarily. I don't really think it should be that way.
Larry Jones named his son Shay. You don't owe that man anything.
Yeah, come on.
Like, what bigger sign of disrespect can you get than that?
Here's a question for you. So let's say, and I don't even want to put this out there, but let's say, let's say Juan Soto signs with the Mets in the offseason. When the Mets play the Subway Series at Yankee Stadium, now granted he would have only been a Yankee for a year. Do you think they would give him like a welcome back or a video tribute of some sort, or do you think it would be dependent on whether or not the Yankees win a World Series with him this year?
I think if they won and he played a role in that, which I assume he would,
yeah,
I think you would have to, if nothing else, for the soul of, hey, thanks for getting us one. I feel like every guy on a World Series team, like, now would it go over that well in Yankee Stadium? That I don't know. I think if they won, I feel like it would be.
I'd like to think that they won that. I'd like to think that they won that. Most Yankee fans would take a step back, and maybe I'm giving Yankee fans too much credit.
it might be a forgive and forget. Like, hey, we broke our drought. Thanks for helping us. Hey, go get your money.
And then I'm sure maybe he gets like maybe while they're playing the highlights from this season, fans would be cheering. But then I'd be totally fine if, like, after that they wanted to boo him every time he came up to bat.
Mike Piazza's first game back with the Padres, he had a 2-homer game, and on the second one they started booing. And I'll never forget the SNY booth started laughing. It's like, no, everybody knows what time it is. We got a game we're playing here. We're trying to win.
Yeah.
Like, and ultimately, we miss you. We love you, but like, hey, get out of the way.
Yeah, and ultimately what it comes down to with like all of these types of things is that we don't have these conversations, and there isn't this discourse around booing or cheering for a player if they weren't somebody. They don't boo nobodies. Johnny Gaudreau, he was somebody. Juan Soto is definitely somebody. Shohei Ohtani absolutely is somebody. And, ultimately that's the reason why these conversations and these, these questions about it exist. Because, if this was like Eric Sogard, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Listen, if I was ever at a Magic game after Evan Fournier left, I'd boo his ass because he stunk.
Yeah. I can't blame you.
If I ever was at a Met game and Armando Benitez was coming, you better believe I'm booing him.
Yeah.
That guy cost us.
Goddamn right. Damn right. Let's transition and let's close out the show with some Yankees talk. So the Yankees currently are holding currently the Yankees hold they're up on the Orioles in the AL East by 1 percentage point. If they are able to hold on and win this game, with that they are currently leading 4-1 in the bottom of the 8th, then it'll be like a half game and a couple more percentage points. But yeah, this race for the AL East is kind of going neck and neck. And I think it will bring them to an interesting conundrum that I kind of thought about. And I feel like I'm one of very few Yankee fans that that has like even mentioned this. So, like thinking back to like last year and the way that the teams that won the divisions and got the first round buys, like they all pretty much got smoked in like the divisional round of the playoffs. And, they looked like the Dodgers, they looked pretty rusty. Same with the Braves last year. So it makes me wonder, like, would the Yankees be better off like winning the division or being a wild card team? And it's something I kind of go back and forth on because, and the way I think about it too is, well, if you're hot at the end of the season, then you probably want to keep playing, right? You probably don't want to break. But also if you're hot at the end of the season, you're probably wrapping the division up. and then you're gonna get the bye. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, as in, like, from an outside perspective, do you think, like, and I feel like every Yankee fan pretty much unanimously agrees that, like, they want to win the division. But I mean, like, what do you think about that? Like, do you think they'd be better off winning and getting the first round bye, or do you think they might be better off if they were to, if they were to fall into a wild card spot and the Orioles won the division?
Well, I guess you could probably use the frame of reference from 2022. I guess that would depend on your perspective of, do you think this team was better than that one or about the same? Because that team got a bye, had to sweat for it against Cleveland, but ultimately won. And then the ALCS went the way it did, but I think ultimately we can prove, like, hey, the Astros were just the best team that year. It is what it is. But do you feel like, hey, yeah, if this team gets a break, is that just going to throw them completely out of rhythm and we'd be in trouble? Or, hey, this pitching staff could use a break. Our bullpen, you're in October, bullpens matter more now than they ever do. Or, hey, our starters, Cole needs to make sure he's at 100% going into this. If we give him a week off, that's probably good for him. Also, say you're able to wrap this division up. I mean, and who knows how it's going to play out, but say you wrap this up on the last Wednesday of the regular season or like the last Tuesday.
I
And
think
hey,
that's probably the absolute earliest that could happen.
So then you could look at it like, hey, look, we can just skip everybody on the weekend. Like, we don't need to run. I mean, I guess your playoff rotation right now would be what? Cole, Rodon, Stroman, and Heel, right?
Most likely.
That.
Clark Schmidt is coming back. Clark Schmidt is coming back soon. He's coming back on Saturday. And I think it depends what Clark Schmidt we get, and I guess there's not enough time, for them to really ramp him up before. I mean, there's enough time to ramp him up before the playoffs, but I guess it's a matter of, like, are they going to be at a point in like 3 weeks to a month from now where they would trust him and give him the ball, like, to start like a World Series or potential, not World Series, but like a playoff game or like even like a potential like elimination game like that. I am not sure about.
Well, I guess you would look at it from, if you look at your staff right now, obviously Cole's going to be in there. Like, he just is. Would you trust Rodon in one of those situations?
It would be. I won't lie. I'd kind of have a hard time trusting him because with Rodon, it's just like you just don't know what you're going to get with him. I mean, you could say that about a lot of pitchers on this team. I mean, Luis Gil's a rookie, so he's not exactly battle tested when it comes to the playoffs. Clark Schmidt before Clark Schmidt got hurt this year, he was great, but he's had his struggles in the playoffs as well. Really the only starting pitcher we have that's like been there and done that is Garrett Cole. Everyone else is.
Well, Stroman did have some experience with the Jays, but I see your point.
Yeah. Everyone else is, a little bit questionable.
So yeah, I guess it would just
even Cole has had his struggles. So I mean, yeah, there's really no one that you
basically
like.
would you value those guys being able to rest for that week plus where, all right, we'll throw away the last series of the regular season. We've got the number 1 seed. We're good. And then we'll get those extra 5 to 6 days off while the wild card series happen. Like, do you value that more than continuing to play? And as far as the continuity, I think probably what's in your guys' favor is if you're worried about, oh, hey, if we're in rhythm and we're hot and then we're off for a week, do we get thrown off? I mean, things could play out differently here in the last month, but I feel like you already had your super hot stretch and you had your super cold stretch. And I know Yankee fans would love to get back to where they were for the first 2 months, but maybe that's a good thing in the sense of, look, if you get super hot now and then you sit for a week, like, yeah, maybe you do run the risk of
cooling
having
down.
what happened to the Braves and the Dodgers, where all of a sudden you go to turn the car back on and you can't. Right now, you're just kind of playing series to series, and maybe that's a good thing. So that if you get that 1 seed and when you come back, it's all right, time to go play another series. It's not, oh man, I hope we can keep this up, or oh man, we stunk for 2 months. Can we shake this? I feel like right now you're just kind of going back to playing ball, and there's not really a sense of you're the hottest team in the league, but you're also not at that stretch that you were where it's like you had one more win than the White Sox for a month. So at least you've
Yeah,
gotten that out of your system.
right. Yeah, and I think to answer your question, I think that I probably would err on the side of valuing the rest and the time off for the pitchers. Like I do worry about like when it comes to like, like that week off or whatever it would be if they were to, clinch the number 1 seed, which they would if they were to win the division. I think my main concern would be the bats going cold. But also like you trust I have enough trust in Judge and Soto and Stanton and even like, and Jazz Chisholm that, that they'll be able, maybe it'll take them a little bit to get going, but I do trust that, the lineup should be able to at least get enough going where they should be able to win the division series and hopefully get into enough of a rhythm where, they're getting hot for the ALCS. And I guess I would value, for the pitchers, I think I would value the rest just because of like all the injuries. Like Cole left the game on what was it, Saturday or Sunday with an injury, like a calf. He had like
Oh yeah, cramp.
cramps in his calf. So he left the game yesterday. Actually, it was losing track of my days.
He said he was
Um,
mainline and applesauce though. He's good.
Yeah, yeah. So he should be fine, but he's also, he also had the injury issues earlier in the year. So, um, I definitely think it would be good to maybe get him, maybe get him some rest and get him right. Same with Heel, same with Schmidt. You know, they both, they both had their injury issues. Like pretty much every Yankee pitcher has had some injury problems of some sort this year. With Rodon, it's kind of like with Rodon, it kind of depends whether he's hot or cold. And same with Stroman. Like both of them seem pretty streaky. And, I'm thinking hopefully at that point, Nestor Cortez will just be like a bullpen arm. But yeah, I mean, ultimately for the pitching staff, which is probably priority number 1, I think I would prioritize making sure that they're all like rested and that they're like fresh and ready to go for that series. And I mean, we've seen how Cole does in wild card games, so if we could avoid that too, that would also be a plus. So you know what, you've convinced me. Let's go win this goddamn division.
Especially with the bullpens. We know the way bullpens get deployed now in the postseason, where you see someone like, and granted, this is probably the most extreme case, but you think back to Andrew Miller in 2016, where they were throwing him like two innings, 2 1/3 inning and 2/3 every single game. And granted, I don't think the Yankees have anyone that they would run like that, but with the way we deploy pitching now, whatever you would classify as your A bullpen, whoever your 7th, 8th, and 9th guys are, you're probably going to them, bar the blowout that you win 13-2 or whatever. But any other game that you would even consider remotely close, they're probably in there. So
Yeah.
all these guys now are max velocity, max effort guys, and you're putting them in the highest leverage, higher pressure situations. You probably want those guys to be as fresh as they can possibly be at this point in the year.
Yeah, no, that's a good point as well. I think it'd probably be most beneficial for the starters and the bullpen as Glaber lets another ground ball go through his glove. Man, he's just so frustrating to watch in the field. He can go do that somewhere else next year. I don't care. One other Yankees related topic though that I kind of wanted to discuss was we were discussing this earlier was there's a lot of talk, a lot of chatter about Jason Dominguez, who is once again healthy but has yet to be called up. Aside from he was called up for like that little league classic game against the Tigers, and then he got sent down immediately. So a lot of people think it's classic. A lot of people think that it is classic, like, Yankees manipulating their service time, and how can they say they're serious about how could they say they're serious about winning when they don't have him up? Because if they don't have him up, they don't have the best. They're not fielding the best roster every day that he's not on the big league roster. They're not fielding their best possible roster, for the big leagues. And there's also there's also some talk about a PPI pick in 2025 if he stays down, which I guess is like a stipulation of service time manipulation. They claim it's not related to that, but we know how a lot of these organizations are. Ultimately, Aaron Boone's reasoning for it when he's asked about it, and I don't even think it's really a Boone question. I would say it's a question for Brian Cashman, or maybe even higher than that. But the buck would probably stop with Cashman at that. But Boone, being the puppet that he is for the organization, he went out of his way to defend the lack of a call up, and basically what he said was that right now there's no room for Jason Dominguez to play, so that it makes more sense for him to be in the minors where he could continue to get at bats and get reps and continue to play, rather than be up with the big squad and basically be like rotting away on the bench. Now, this comment is interesting to me for a few reasons, because it's like, number one, you're telling me that he can't play over Alex Verdugo. So, like, that's first and foremost. And also, I would think that even if he is on the bench, like, there are definitely situations where you can get him into a game. Like, there's going to be a time where you're going to have a DJ LeMahieu or Alex Verdugo, who I guess you're going to inexplicably start over Jason Dominguez. There's going to be situations where those guys are batting in high leverage situations where you need a base runner or you need an RBI. I'd probably rather roll the dice with him than basically go in there and like being like, all right, like here comes the inning ending double plays that we've grown so accustomed to as the Yankees are looking more and more like they might blow this game. Aaron Boone's yelling at the umpire about something. Not sure what's going on, but he is doing a mound visit, taking out Nick Cousins, and stream is buffering, so I'm not sure who's coming in next. But I would just think that even if you're not going to play him, which also doesn't make sense to me, I would think that there would be a benefit from him being up on the big squad, even if it's just like that vote of confidence, because like he's been hurt for so long and has been spending so much time in the minors and like tearing up the minors. Maybe just like that vote of confidence, like, hey, you're ready, and we do want to have the best team possible, and you're a part of that.
The one counter I would have for that, and I'm not even saying this is totally correct, because I do think there's a counter to what I'm going to say, but if you're the front office and people have been hearing about this kid for years, and when he comes up last year, he looks the part. I remember watching him in that series against the Astros, and it's, oh my God, they got another one.
Yeah.
And then he gets this injury, and they have been so careful with him throughout the rehab process and bringing him back.
Which was the right thing to do.
Right. Especially for someone, I mean, and you should do this for anyone anyway, but when you have someone that I think they're rightfully pinning a lot of hope on, like, yeah, let's not mess this kid up. I guess the one thing I would think of is, all right, if we put all our hopes on this kid to come in and fix the lineup and be someone that gives the lineup a jolt going into the playoffs, and then if he's not totally right, and like say he hits 180 in the playoffs, which could happen, largely because you're facing the best of the best pitching. Like, guys throw up those kind of series numbers all the time. Now he's still not right. Now his confidence is shot because he just went into a playoff series and didn't go well. And now the fan base is like, oh, great, another dud. And then you got everybody turning on him, and he hasn't even played a full season yet being healthy. And I guess the counter to that would, there are two counters to that would be, well, one, if he's not built for it, then maybe he can't handle it. And two, what if he goes out there and kills it, which is totally possible. And maybe he is the thing that gets your lineup going that you absolutely had to have, which very fair. But I could understand if you're playing it overly cautious with someone that, if you're the front office and you're thinking, hey, look, let's just get to 25. If this kid's healthy, we know what he looks like healthy. He did not look overwhelmed by major league pitching. Even if we lose Soto, we're just putting him in the lineup there next to Judge. And we've got other guys coming. Say we keep Soto. Now we have an outfield of Soto, Judge, and Dominguez. That's exactly where we want to be. Like, okay, maybe we bite the bullet here for the long-term benefit. It feels like a variation of the Strasburg discussion in a way. Granted, obviously pitchers and hitters are two completely different things, but maybe they're taking the long-term outlook here of, let's not ruin this kid now when potentially, if he's healthy, he's going to be an anchor of the lineup with Aaron Judge for 12, 14 years.
I see what you're saying, but I think that, to your point of like, oh, if he comes up and he sucks, and, the fan base will turn on him and his confidence will be shot. I think if that's the case, if 1 month, if he goes on a slump for 1 month, and also the fact that it is September now, so the rosters have expanded, and he is your best prospect, like, I really see no reason for him not to be up there. So that number one. Number two, I think, okay, so either he sucks or he kills it or something in between. I think you got to find out what you have at some point. And
That's
I don't
fair.
think and I don't think like a month of baseball plus the playoffs is a large enough sample size to make that determination. So in my eyes, like, whatever happens this year, I mean, I can't speak for all Yankee fans, because a lot of Yankee fans are, way more impatient than this. But I would say that whatever, he were to do, in the vacuum of this next month to month and a half to possibly 2 months, if he were to come up, I don't think that would like really make or break him, as far as his long-term career goes. I don't think it would be a large enough sample size either way. And I also just think that, if you're in the, if you say that you're a serious, if you say that you're a serious World Series contender, and that's your goal, and that, winning's the most important thing, and that, and that your dedication or your philosophy is to put, have the best 28 or whatever, however many people are on the roster. If you want to put the best roster out there that gives you the best chance of the win, I think ultimately he needs to be a part of it.
No, that's a fair
this
point.
point,
Of if you're trying to win right now, and if you're
like,
still of the mindset of the championships are the only thing that matter, and
this is the only time that we are guaranteed Juan Soto. So, maybe even if your long-term vision is, Judge, Soto, and Dominguez being the outfield of your future, the only time that you have guaranteed to see what that could even look like would be right now.
and to that, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week with, finding someone else in the lineup to take DJ spot or Verdugo spot is, hey, yeah, let's just try. Like, hey, maybe Dominguez is ready and, he's just kind of waiting around in AAA and he's bored. We've seen what he can do against major league pitching. He was doing it against the Astros pitching staff. He was facing some great guys. No problem at all. Like, maybe if you just bring him back up, maybe he's ready to go. And if you slot him into the lineup over, like, say they called him up tomorrow, and all right, hey, we're going to give you 2 weeks here in left field. Let's see how you do. And maybe he doesn't hit the way he did last year, but he also doesn't look sluggish either. If I'm Aaron Boone, I'm absolutely giving him the left field spot going into the playoffs. I know I've gotten more out of that spot in 2 weeks than anything I got for 5 months. That kid might give me a shot to at least get me to a World Series. And I would think if the Yankees got to a World Series this year and didn't win, it probably at least would buy Boone some more time in that sense, right? Because then it's all right. Hey,
That's
yeah,
the
we
furthest
got
he's
this.
gotten. Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if, hitting a home run to get the team to the World Series 20 something years ago was enough for him to get the manager job in the first place, it should be enough to buy him some more time. Although, honestly, I don't really think Boone's job would be in any sort of jeopardy, like kind of regardless of what happens. I think that
Okay.
I think he's kind of just their guy, like I think that Cashman makes the decisions. And another thing, too, like, we talked last week about Cashman's ego, and is that the reason why he's been rolling with LeMahieu nonstop? And we actually, and Anthony Rizzo actually was just reactivated. And honestly, at this point, I'd welcome back Anthony Rizzo with open arms, because I think that he could kind of just take DJ's spot at first base and be an upgrade, even if he is kind of a shell of his former self at this time. But like, if this is an ego thing for Cashman, don't you want Jason Dominguez to don't you want to give him that chance to come up and tear it up, and then you could be like, see, like that's why I drafted him. See, like I still got it. I still know how to
That's our
evaluate
scouting
talent,
department. That was our find.
and we still know how to scout.
Right. That's
So
a good point.
I mean, maybe the other side of it is if he sucks, then then it's like a blow to that, and then you feel like it makes you look bad. But again, like I said before, I don't think one way or the other that like the next month should really define or should really like make or break his like career. So I think that it's time to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off. This is someone who should be able to help you right now. And even if he can't help you right now, at least you find that out. So that's
Yeah,
kind
and
of where I stand with it.
and I think that's a good perspective to have of, hey, look, if we know that he's coming off an injury layoff, then if he does good, great. That means he's set for 25 and beyond. If he doesn't kill it, well, all right. Now he's gonna have a full off season to fully heal up. We'll trust that the talent's still there when we come back in spring training, and he'll be ready to go in 25. That I kind of see your perspective more in the sense of, if it doesn't go well, don't bury him. But if he's good, then great. He's here now, and let's just go with it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, I just think it's time. I don't think you can wait any longer. Especially if you are trying to win now, and if you are trying to, if you are trying to see like, okay, like is having these three guys be like our main outfielders, is that like feasible? Is that a good plan? I feel like now is the perfect time to figure it out. Like, to me, whatever risks they may be considering as far as not bringing up Dominguez right now, or whatever they think is going to be the issue with him sitting or starting the season on the bench, I don't think it outweighs the potential rewards.
Yeah, and I feel like this was something that the Yankees used to always do. They let Shane Spencer get hot for a month, and it's, hey, you know what? You're in the playoff lineup. Oh, yep. Ricky Leday popped up out of nowhere. Cool. The left field spot is yours. We grabbed Alfonso Soriano from the other side of the world. Cool. You're starting World Series games now. You're in. Like, this is just what they used to do constantly. I remember Melky and Cano would get big at bats in the playoffs as rookies. It's almost like throwing them into a deep end. It's like, if the talent's there, they'll figure it out. Usually talent like that will handle that situation. And if Dominguez is as good as at least that first sample that we saw last year, and his pedigree suggests he is, he'll be all right.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that obviously the way they did it worked well for them. It's worked well for them in the past. And, I don't really see, and I mean, we've seen it work in present day too. Like Jeremy Pena, I'd say, is a pretty good example of that.
Evan Carter.
Yeah, Evan Carter. So there's plenty of cases of it working in the present day too. So I just don't know what analytics they're looking at or what is telling them that this isn't the right move that seems so clear. I mean, the dude's like far and away your number one prospect. So it's just like, what are you waiting for at this point? But that's pretty much going to do it for us here today. It's been another great show. As always, make sure that you are, subscribed to our YouTube channel and the Middle Initial Podcast YouTube. And make sure you're following us on the Twitters and the social medias at BDPod24, at MIPod69, and at AscensionPodNW. Another sold-out event for the Ascension Podcast Network. The Jets home opener tailgate is sold out. Help us sell out the Sunday brunch against the Minnesota Vikings. I think that's about all the PSAs and pretty much everything I have to say. Do you have any final words for the people?
Spread the good word about Francisco Lindor to a neighbor near you. That's really all I got.
Yep, spread the word of Francisco Lindor because he'll be doing a lot of the sound you're about to hear when I play this outro. Peace.